place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Murali End. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy. It's we when mad, it's them. It's the same place, Murali End. Sri Lanka cricket we gon' represent. So tell a friend.
Welcome to Murali End. My name is Mark Machado. I'm joined by my cousin across the pond, Dominic Machado, and I'm also joined by Sri Lanka's #1 cricket historian, Nick Brooks. I'm in London, Nick's in London, but all the action over the next few days is going to be in Colombo. Sri Lanka are getting ready for the ODI Series against England. Sri Lanka are quite well fancied at home, but the last time we saw them playing this format of cricket, it was a terrible watch for us Sri Lanka fans. So they took on Pakistan in November. England absolutely desperate for wins to try and climb up that ladder and get into the 2027 ODI World Cup without having to go through a painful qualification process. We'll go through all of it. We'll look at Sri Lanka's squad for it, what we can expect from it. We'll discuss a little bit about how the pitch might play and what the selection might be. If you haven't come across us before, because we're joined the Combox family now, then we're the Murali End, and we discuss Sri Lanka cricket. We'll be live after every Sri Lanka match as well. We'll open the studio up, and you guys can come join us and tell us what you think. Leave us your comments. What I want to know is, this is the kind of question we're throwing out at the beginning of the show. If one of the England team asked you where they should go for a night out in Colombo, where would you recommend? Get in the comments and tell us what you think. Dom, I'll come to you first. Looking forward to this series?
Yeah, I think we got kind of we got an appetizer with the Pakistan series. We got 32 overs of cricket. I was ready to go. I was excited kind of leading up to the World Cup, and now we are promised much more of that. I think there's the question of relevance that comes up. We've been talking about this. Why play 3 ODIs 3 weeks out from 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out from a T20 World Cup? Wouldn't this be better as a 6 T20I series or something like that? So I'm curious what the relevance is going to be. I'm curious sort of the man management aspect of it. When we talk about the squad, we'll see who's in and who's out. And some of that is man management. Some of it doesn't seem to be. So I'm curious to see how it plays out. I want to see Sri Lanka playing good, fearless cricket. That's my hope. I don't know if they'll do it, but that's what we want to see.
Yeah, Nick, we were talking in our WhatsApp chat the last few days about how Sri Lanka really could do with playing these being T20 games, and I'd totally forgotten that actually there's this whole qualification process that is going on. At any given time, there's so much going on in cricket, isn't it? It's hard to keep abreast of it. This kind of adds an extra dimension to it, doesn't it? Because it's a series. I've just arrived back in London, and you've been here a few weeks. It's a series that's not getting a lot of attention in the UK, but actually it's quite important for both sides, right?
Yeah. Hey, Marky. Hey, Dom. It does feel weird, as Dom said, this coming right in the lead up to a T20 World Cup. But as you say, Marky, World Cup qualification, it is important for both sides. And there isn't a lot of attention on it in the UK at the moment. But I think if England gets skittled for under 200 tomorrow, there will be. I'm sure there's some tired minds in that squad, some batters specifically with low confidence. So potentially a couple of scalps for the taking from Sri Lanka's perspective.
I asked where you would recommend England go for their nights out, if they are allowed any nights out. Or maybe, if they want to have a legal nights out. Dennis got in touch saying, seeing the England cricket team at Park Street Mews would be crazy. I would love that. I'm a bit scared of Park Street Mews. That's, if you don't know, that's where Uncle's is. That's where all the kind of bars in Colombo are at. It's really busy on a Friday night. I was there a couple of Friday nights ago, and I bumped into somebody who was about 10 years younger than me, one of my not quite relatives, but like a cousin type of Sri Lankan scenario. And I also bumped into somebody who went to school with my dad as well. At the other end of it. Yeah. So Park Street Mews is kind of where all life lives in Sri Lanka, and I suspect. In fact, actually, I think of Russell Arnold's Instagram page, he posted pictures of himself and Sanath there the Friday after I was last there, which would have been the Friday just gone. So, as I say, you never know who you're going to bump into. I would say that's the most likely place the England team would end up if they end up. Dennis said, I've seen an English cricket content creator on Instagram say jokingly that only 10 people watch England versus Sri Lanka series. I don't want to get into a tangent. This is meant to be a Sri Lankan cricket show, right? But what I will say about that comment is I think that's one of the big reasons why English cricket is kind of in the perpetual doldrums, and why they just have won one test in Australia in like 20 years or 15 years or whatever, and that silly stat is. It's because they do not have respect for other teams, and that's just a cultural problem in English cricket. We could go into that if you want, Nick. I mean, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think there'll be plenty of people watching, and I think it's bad week to be a bottle of Lion Lager.
Yeah. But I mean, there'll be plenty of people watching. I know day one is already sold out, and I think the second, not day one, the first ODI is already sold out, and I think the second ODI is already sold out as well. Presumably, the third one's not far off.
This is a series that, like, England underestimate at their peril, right? Like, technically, the change coming from Australia, where they haven't been able to cope with excessive bounce, to the kind of pitches we expect that they're going to be served up here, which won't bounce and should turn. It's going to be tough for them. I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park by any means.
Yeah, Dom, our squad is very focused towards spinning, right?
Yeah. So what's interesting is that a couple of guys who we think of as our frontline bowlers are not in the squad, notably Dushmantha Chamira. So the three out-and-out pace bowlers are Asatha Fernando, Pramod Madhushan, and Eshan Malinga. Milan Ratnaik is there providing sort of pace all-round option. But then you have a mixture of Will Alagay, Hasaranga, Vandersay, Tikshana, plus the part-time spin of Kamindu Mendes and Charatha Salanka. So lots and lots and lots of spinning options. I don't know if they're going to go trial by spin. I think it'll be an interesting test before the World Cup, because the Premadasa, as we were talking about before we got on the show, is one of the pitches that's going to be used. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays, 2-3 weeks before the actual big show.
So we're well on the road to Ahmedabad. We're two and a bit weeks away to the World Cup starting in Sri Lanka and India. And this is a kind of pit stop along the way. We're playing 3 50-over games. What's really unusual for this, though, is I can't say we're on the road to Cape Town or Newlands, wherever the final is going to be for the 2027 World Cup, because the driver of our bus that has taken us there isn't yet in situ, right? Because Sanath is leaving at the end of the T20 World Cup. So you kind of I want to know what the kind of messaging might be within the Sri Lanka camp around kind of selection, around how they want to play the games, around what I assume it'll be win now in terms of kind of pitch preparation. There's also the other consideration is the ICC at some point take over looking at the pitches going into the World Cup. We think that's about 2 and a bit weeks out, so we reckon it'll be the...
So I think Mark was talking about what to expect. There you go. We're back. You're back. We lost you for a second.
Yeah. So I want to come to you, Nick. What do you expect from the Sri Lanka side if it isn't just a lot of spin?
God, I mean, that's an absolute hospital pass, Marky. I've got no idea what to expect. This is a series that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and the closer and closer we've got to it, the more trepidant I feel about it. I would expect Sri Lanka to go with 2 out-and-out quicks in Esha Malinga and Asi Fernando. And then, yeah, the rest of the attack probably to be made up by spin. I wouldn't be that surprised if we see Weller, Hasaranga and Theeks all playing. I think what's going to be interesting is if we look at the batting lineup, I think we would be 99% sure that Pathum, Kamal Mishara, Kusal Mendis, Charith, and then there's someone I've forgotten, isn't there? Janith Lianage will be in that top 6. So that's 5 guys. So that leaves, I guess, Kamindu, Sadira, and DDS battling for that last batting slot. So that's going to be revealing to see which way they go. I think we're all slightly nervous that it's going to be DDS parachuted back into that middle order.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I'm assuming that they're doing this to give him some run time in white ball cricket before the World Cup because they have him in their plans. They've dropped KJP from the T20 squad, it seems. And I think it's a ploy to say, all right, let's spend some time and see what he's got and let him warm up by playing at number 4. So I'd be surprised if he wasn't in that 11. I also think Charth came out and said that they're really they want to play Milan Ratnayaka because the World Cup is in South Africa. So the question is he one of the 2 out-and-out pacers, or is it 2 pacers, 2 spinners, and a seam bowling all-rounder? And then they're trusting Kamindu and Charth to kind of chuck in a few overs here and there.
I'm a little bit the thing that worries me is basically how we're going to play Adil Rashid, right? He's in the 11. He's very experienced of bowling in these kind of conditions because he's played so much franchise cricket around the world. I think if we can get on top of Adil Rashid and not let him get on top of us, then I think there's a possibility we can put a kind of big scoring. The thing that worries me is kind of overconfidence because I think Sri Lanka are coming into this going, England aren't a good white ball team. Hold on, Dennis has said, I wonder what DDS has on these guys sometimes. Then again, we can deny the magnitude of a 25 career average at 70 strike rate. Look, we can't ever explain some of the reasonings behind it. We can only offer up our theories for the thinking behind it. And, there's a school of thought that maybe if you kind of hit the reset button a few weeks before the World Cup, then you might accidentally pick the right team. Accidentally on purpose pick the right team. That's the only kind of explanation there is for it, right? I mean, as we always say on this show, we have nothing against DDS. We have nothing against the players selected, except sometimes we just have to come to terms with the fact in Sri Lanka cricket, sometimes the selections don't make sense. Sometimes the decision making doesn't seem to be as kind of critical. I'm going to say critical. I'm also going to say as kind of clear and straightforward as you might, and logical as you might think. Can we go with that?
Yeah, but I would echo Dennis. Like, is that the bar? And if it is the bar, it's really worrying. I also think that perhaps, like, if you had a really inexperienced middle order, bringing DDS back could be a good move. But like, you look at the guys around him, they're not spring chickens, right? It's giving me Dimuth before the last World Cup kind of feels.
Yeah. And
I mean, there's still 3 weeks for Dimuth to make this World Cup, yeah?
And just warming up too.
Yeah. Pace bowling all rounder was mentioned, so you've got a roll for Ange. But I think the other thing that's interesting is, okay, they're 18 months out. What about trying, God forbid, you try a lineup that has maybe 2 pace all rounders that can bat a bit, maybe a Chamindu Wickramasinghe and Milan Ratnayaka. Try them at 6 and 7, but that would be, as you said, Mark, all too logical.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of recent history of Sri Lankan cricket is just go back with something that's not worked before. Like
that's the way. While we're talking about logic, I would just like to ask you guys where you stand on the kind of Pramod Madhushan pick. Again, nothing against him, but from what I've seen, he feels like, I don't know, just like a fairly pedestrian seamer. And I'm kind of wondering what's going on with Sri Lanka's quicks, like more generally. I don't think this would be a time for Patirana to play an ODI, but he hasn't played since the last World Cup, and we haven't had any messaging about that. Is he no longer going to be considered in 50-over cricket? Lahira Kumar has been back playing for NCC a lot. We haven't heard anything about him. Is he no longer like a white ball guy? I think that like SLC could do with giving some clarity. Like Tashara's just been dropped before a T20 World Cup. It kind of makes you feel like what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, Kamara, right, as you said, he's been bowling, and he's been very productive in one-day cricket when he's played. Obviously, there's been a lot of injury issues. So, like, we remember the last ODI, that big performance against England, and then immediately bows out with an injury. So I don't know if it's a maintenance thing at this point, but there are no tests in the offing. Why not give him a run and see what he's got?
So sometimes I think maybe the selectors have just lost the players' numbers. It's like they've changed phones, and they've just like, you know, someone's messaging going, "Where's Custom Roger?"
Yeah,
which I think is like a really fair question to ask, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm just like, it's like they've lost their players' numbers. While we're on the subject of Sri Lankan pace bowlers, I will plug my interview with Banura Fernando that came out. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Also,
that
he'd be great as a one-day bowler, I feel like. I think he'd be very good and very handy in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah. And he was in the last ODI squad as well.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. So I think he was. I'm pretty sure. Oh, it gets a bit messy with Sri Lanka, doesn't it? Yeah, go back and check it out. Yeah. What's interesting about the interview, though, is we talk a lot about being a fast bowler. We talk a lot about injuries. We talk a lot about how he's coped with injuries. At one point, I even asked him about, you know, do him and the other kind of Sri Lankan fast bowlers ever talk about injuries? And it seems like they don't, which actually I thought was quite strange, because I would have thought maybe SLC will kind of get them all together and be like, sit them all down and be like, what can we offer you guys? Because clearly something is going wrong. It's what I do think is a kind of positive is that we're going into a World Cup, and unlike the last few World Cups we've gone into, we've actually got a clutch of healthy pace bowlers.
Don't say it, Mark. You can't say that. I thought you were going to say that we're not on a high. We're like sort of like, meh, we're not expecting much, and which is when they're going to do something. And as opposed to like, you know, 22 and 24, where we're like, oh, this team, it's going to do it. It's going to do it. Now we're like, no, they're not going to do it. So,
but it's well, I think the point I will make to that is you know, go look at 24, and we were really excited about our kind of stable of fast bowlers, and now I feel like maybe that is kind of worn off a little bit. That maybe we're not as excited as we were,
but we should be.
And we should be more excited than we actually currently are, because all these players they're all still kind of in their peak. There's none of them that you think are going to really struggle, but maybe they just haven't pushed on the way that we thought they did. I mean, Patirana is case in point, right? Where you're like, he's at a World Cup by the 10 overs, and you're thinking, right, he's going to really do this in a few years' time. And now, if you'd asked me at this moment in time, I'd say, I don't think he's in the ODI setup. And even, I think he's a great T20 bowler, but I think the problem is whoever's some selector somewhere within Sri Lanka doesn't really fancy him, right? As in, doesn't really fancy his bowling, not in a physical way.
But it's a huge pivot leaving Tashara out of the T20 World Cup, right? And indicative that Patirana is in their mind, that they think that he can play.
Yeah, I think he's going to, right? I think they'll definitely. I also think that health is a concern, because Tamira would be one of the guys you would obviously pick. You might give a look to Patirana, especially as a middle overs, death overs guy, right? So maybe they know how important those two guys are to the plans for the T20 World Cup, and they're hoping to keep them healthy. But you know, if you wanted to counter what I was saying, you would say, look, Wanindu Hasaranga is in the squad, and there's absolutely no reason that we need to risk him for injury. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's too conservative to say, why don't we just give Vanders a shot? He's capable. We know he's good. Let him play.
So apparently, according to Rex Clementine, since the end of the T20 series against Pakistan, which was a week ago, 10 days ago?
Yeah.
When Indu flew out to Singapore to get medical treatment, some sort of medical treatment, but has flown back in within the last day or two. And actually, for whatever reason he was in Singapore, it wasn't a major issue. It was a minor issue. But he thinks he'll be fully fit for this and for the ODIs and for the T20s. Apologies if my internet connection is terrible today. I don't really understand.
You're working good right now.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I do hear you, Dom. I mean, you don't want anyone to get injured at this stage, and it goes back to the question of why are they playing ODIs 2 weeks before the World Cup?
Especially if it's not pitch related, right? Yeah.
Good question that's coming from Mervyn. What about the action of KJP from the squad? I'll be honest, he was one of the players I thought would never get axed, so I'm shocked it's happened. I thought he was Salah's boy through and through. I can make an argument for him being in the squad. I can also make an argument for him being against the squad. What I think is a bit weird, though, is he was striking at, about 120. I think that's right, 125, which is kind of the lower end of acceptable for playing at kind of number 4 in a T20 team, and he's been replaced by somebody who strikes at, I think 85 in T20. So make that what you will. I've said this before in this show that we do know Sri Lanka are working with a specialist hitting coach, and maybe DDS is really taken to it, and maybe there is something there where they think that DDS is a better striker of the ball in T20 cricket in the first quarter of 2026 than KJP is. Maybe the alternative theory is that Sri Lanka are so worried about losing wickets quickly, they're going to drop in DDS because they know that he can stick around. Even if he doesn't score runs and if he doesn't do it quickly, he can stick around. Should caveat this all with the last time we saw him playing T20 cricket, which was actually a 12-over game, he did find the boundary much more frequently than he had
he
in the past. So there is some sort of kind of upward trajectory on this, right? I also do think they might have looked at Pakistan and seen Salman Ali Alka become an absolute monster of T20 cricket when he plays against us. No one else, and thought maybe DDS could do what he's doing.
That's the most persuasive explanation I've heard is the Salman Ali Aga theory.
Yeah. I mean, is there any other theories I'm missing here, guys?
I've got no theories, but what I am going to say is it's a really bad vibe consistently picking players for like the year leading into a major tournament, and then that tournament comes around and they get dropped.
Yeah. That's the issue to me is like you were persistently picking KJP for like a year. And how many times had we said, okay, he's gone. He's not going to be the be in the squad anymore, but he's been around the squad. He scored in dead rubbers and he stayed around. And then all of a sudden, without a bad performance, there was not like a particularly bad performance. They switch him out for someone who is not at all a like for like, right? DDS is not like, if you were dreaming it up, DDS is not the guy you would say, oh, he's obviously the KJP replacement.
At least bring back Barnaker.
Yeah, right, exactly. At least, and then the other thing is we think about what has been lost, right? So you think of someone like Nuanindu Fernando, who was brought in to notionally bat at 4. Now he played 2 matches. They didn't like what they saw, and he's gone. How can you how can you give KJP 20 games, give Nuanindu 2, and then turn around and drop KJP and bring in another guy who hasn't played at all in this like lead up to the World Cup?
That's Sri Lanka. It's at this point it's totally irrational, and it looks like the musings of the Mad King.
Like uncles trusting uncles a bit. Like But I mean, when does it stop? You've got to try younger players at some point, right?
Yeah. Who's making the calls right now? I'm really curious about that. Like with Sanath because like I'd imagine KJP is like a Sanath favorite, right? That's kind of been my working theory. So does this mean now that the new, like the new selection committee is picking these guys and putting them in? Is that what we're seeing? Is this like it's basically they didn't have time to hire a new coach before the T20 World Cup, so they've just effectively stripped Sanath of all his power and are picking players that he may not like, but I don't know.
That's kind of the most logical explanation, right?
Yeah. That's what I thought makes sense, but
even that doesn't make sense, right? Because I mean, how vindictive do you have to be like, we are giving you a squad that we know you don't want, and also because I mean, we know that there is kind of, it's really parochial within Sri Lankan cricket. We know that there is kind of feuds within within the management of Sri Lankan cricket, but surely the one thing you all unite around is not just any World Cup. This is a home World Cup, that you've apparently been preparing for kind of, I'm going to kind of say 4 years, because they were talking about this World Cup going into the last T20 World Cup, right? So if that's the case, then I don't understand why weeks before, like 3 or 4 weeks before, they've decided to tear it all up. I mean, like someone's talked about Kamindu in the comments, right? Why you need DDS when you have Kamindu is pretty much the better younger version of DDS. That's from Taruka, right? And I kind of thought going into the Pakistan tour last year after the back of the Asia Cup, I kind of felt like Kamindu was starting to show signs of actually they were playing him out position down the bottom. 6 or 7 he's coming into bat, and he was starting to show signs that he was actually being able to find the boundary quite frequently and be a bit of a finisher in T20 cricket. Obviously, we all know when you're asked to pivot into something else, to do something you've never done before, you ain't going to wake up the next day and go and do it. You're going to need some time figuring that role out and how you do it. Kamindu was starting to figure it out. He had a couple of games where he didn't quite do it, and that position is a high risk position. There is going to be times when it doesn't come off you, right? It's the nature of it. So obviously they don't think, right, he's one of our best strikers off the ball, he's one of our best batters, let's move him higher up. They just think, drop him, just get rid of him. I mean, that logic is so flawed. It's like, even if you look at this Sri Lanka side and you look at Kamindu and you go, I don't like the way he plays cricket, I think he's just a lucky cricketer, you should at least think to yourself, okay, even if he is a lucky cricketer, he's on a hot streak right now. Like, in every format, he's scoring runs. He's going off to the IPL and making himself useful, right? We should nurture this. The thing Kamindu definitely has is that he's a match winner. And then instead of thinking, how do we get the best out of it, it's just let him go. Like, we don't need him in this squad. I think he will be in a T20 squad, and I assume Kamindu being Kamindu, at some point we'll get into it, into the 11. But I don't think he's, in their minds, he's starting at this point.
Totally agree, Marky. And like, he's a rare resource in terms of Sri Lanka, right? He's someone who can hit sixes off front foot and back foot all around the wicket. And I feel like in terms of white ball cricket, his career has just been totally mismanaged over the past couple of years, been given no role clarity, at times asked to bat 8 and play like primarily as a spin bowler. And like, he's not young anymore, right? Kamindu's what, 27, possibly 28 by now, and like, you're letting the best years of really talented players just drift. It's disappointing. It's frustrating.
It's interesting because, like, if you think about someone like Kamindu, right, clearly wanted all across the world as a talent, but we do things like, we're playing him primarily as a spin bowler. We're batting him at 8, sometimes 9. And then there are games where he doesn't bowl any spin at all, where you're like, oh, we need another over. Someone like our 5th bowler is getting smashed around. And it's like, we're not going to bowl Kamindu. So what is it? And I think it speaks to I think it was Delaney who brought this up a few weeks ago, that Sri Lanka still has not sussed out its white ball identity in any way, shape, or form, and that's a big problem. One bit of news: I was reading about the Asalanka interview today. He says that apparently Hasaranga may or may not play. He might not play in the series. They haven't taken the decision on it, and if they do, they're going to play with Ratnayaka and Will Alagay as the 2 all-rounders, 6 batters, and then 3 other bowlers.
That sounds that sounds like they're trying to throw England off the scent, and he almost definitely will play. And we'll see 60 wrong-uns coming into Joe Root tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. Guys, should we kind of wrap this up with a little kind of predictions of what we think might happen? I said earlier I'm worried about Adil Rashid. I'm worried about Joe Root as well. Mm-hmm. The England are opening with is it Crawley and Duckett as well?
Crawley and Duckett, baby.
Yep.
Which I'm interested to see how they go in Colombo.
They've been a bit SLC with their selection, England, like just picking players
I was
out.
Going to say, Will Jacks batting at 7. Why wouldn't you open with him or put him at 3 or something?
They've like repurposed him as this kind of spin bowling all rounder. I was going to say it's kind of interesting to see like Will Jacks versus Charith. Like, you know, you don't. I assume that Charith's a much better bowler than Will Jacks, but until you get Jacks on a complete minefield, you don't really know. So like, I'm looking forward to seeing like this, how the spinners go, and if Hasaranga plays, I think that like sort of battle against Rashid is really intriguing.
And the other thing is like that it's not a strong England bowling lineup. I mean, you've got Sam Curran, Jamie Overton, Liam Dawson, and Adil Rashid. It's not, you know, it's not exactly lighting you on fire. So Jackson and Root are probably going to have to bowl 10 overs between them. So you better be able to dominate those guys, right? Like you can't just take 5 off and over and say, okay, we're fine with that. In fact, it looks very much like a Sri Lankan 7-4 setup here, right? With medium pacers. And I think Adil Rashid is obviously, that's going to be the big thing. Can Potham and Kusal handle him? I think it'll be actually a good test in like, you know, sort of leading up to the World Cups, facing a high quality wrist spinner and figuring out over the course of the series, how do we take him down? How do we challenge him? And Curran always shows up against Sri Lanka with both bat and ball. He's one of those sort of nagging players who will always be like, we'll get one over on Sri Lanka, you know, his entire career. And even Tom Curran has had success against us. The Currans love to play against Sri Lanka.
The other thing that does strike me about this England team is it's full of players that are that seem to get franchise contracts all over the world. And I know that's a deep frustration of a lot of Sri Lanka players and a lot of people involved in Sri Lanka cricket. If I was in the change room, that would be the motivation I'd be using to G up everyone else there and be like, go and show the world why you deserve a T20 contract in the CPL and not Sam Curran or Dawson or Will Jacks, whoever it is. We complain about that a lot on this show. We're like, why have these guys got contracts and our boys not get anything? Right? I think that should be a huge driver of it. Charith Asalanka versus Will Jacks. That's why I'm watching this game, right, Nick?
Yeah, and I think it's a really pertinent point you make, Marky, because like whether we like it or not, and we say there hasn't been much hype for this series, there will be so many more eyes on this series than there were on Sri Lanka, Pakistan, right? And it's an opportunity for people like Patham, who I think most people in England still haven't heard of, even though he made a 4th innings match-winning 100 at the Oval, like to go out and score 100 and make that statement that, look, I'm a guy who needs to be known around world cricket. So I hope that that's motivating the whole of the Sri Lanka squad. And I really hope, above anything, I've got no idea what to expect from the results, but I hope we see kind of personal performances, guys standing up and showing that they can not just belong, but dominate.
Yeah. Should we talk about the trophy?
Oh yeah, gosh, we should have started with that. What? Can't believe we didn't. yeah, again, cricket has a few things that are fixed. One of them is that Australia will always win the Ashes, while England will always win the Moral Ashes. India and Pakistan will always be drawn in the same group, whatever tournament it is, whatever gender, whatever format. And Sri Lanka will always have the best trophies. I think this is now become I'd say it's probably one of the reasons. There'll be young kids in England dreaming of playing for one of these trophies, getting themselves to the England side to get to a Sri Lanka tour to play for one of these giant, big, over-the-top, Disney-inspired trophies. Wouldn't you say, Nick?
Yeah, I would just warn anyone who gets their hands on that trophy not to try and melt it down for alloys, because I reckon you're going to get some pretty toxic fumes coming off that plastic. Yeah. I think it's one of the it's right up there with the Moose Cup.
Yeah. I thought the Moose Cup was a high point, right, with the whole antlers. And if anyone's listening in the trophy making department of SLC, bring the antlers back. Sri Lanka also has elephants and turtles, so I'd like to see a turtle shelled trophy or a trophy with actual tusks. There's loads of places you can take it, but this Danborough trophy it's superb, isn't it, Dom?
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to have that in their, perpetually living in their locker room, right? You come into the brain center or the high performance center, and that's what you're greeted with. Right next to the World Cup.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is a Sri Lanka Cricket Museum. I haven't been to it in Colombo. I promise myself next time I'll go there. Next time I'm there, I'll try and turn a visit to it. But that's where those trophies are kept, I believe. So I mean, it's just going to look magnificent soon, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Go and have a look there, guys. Can we just answer this or chat about this very quickly before we leave? Mervyn has asked anything about Bangladesh cricket. I mean, there's two things. Firstly, they are our Pantho enemies, or we are the good guys and they are the bad guys, because that's our biggest rivalry for no real reason. But this whole issue with Bangladesh potentially getting thrown out of the World Cup, or I'd not say thrown out, replaced or locked out. I mean, it just shows the disarray that this sport is kind of in, right, Nick?
Yeah, without getting too much into it, Marky, I think whenever you see that kind of injustice and that kind of double standards and a supposedly neutral sporting body bending over to accommodate one nation and then treating the other with just total disregard, it really sticks in your throat, doesn't it? And I think if Bangladesh are out of the World Cup, a lot of people will feel rightly aggrieved and will feel that once again cricket has really failed itself.
Yeah, and I mean, Bangladesh has established itself as a player in world cricket, over the last decade, right? They deserve to be there and should be there. I know, Mark, it's a jab to the heart whenever he hears that, and but they've played hard. They've got a good squad. I really like their T20 squad. I think they've done some really excellent things, and they could shake things up at this World Cup. But so it's sad to see other factors get in the way.
Yeah, you'd hope that the cricket world would be trying to accommodate them as well as possible, and try and sort the situation out. However, there doesn't appear to be much will to be able to do that. Anyway, guys, we've been in the Murali End. We're going to be back tomorrow, minutes after the end of the match. I have no idea. This is Sri Lanka cricket. Sri Lanka versus England in Sri Lanka is I'd say about as volatile as cricket can get. This game could last 20 overs. It could last 100 overs. But we'll be back soon after whatever time it finishes, and we'll have all the results. We'll also open up a studio as well, so you guys can come on and have a chat with us. Nero is listening. He said, "Hello, boys. You've definitely got to come on, DJ Nero."
Yes,
we'll see you all.
Yeah,
We'll see you guys all tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
It's the Murali End, you're the place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Murali End. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy it's we, when mad it's them. It's the same. may play some Murali End. Sri Lanka cricket we gon' represent. So tell a friend.